Welcome everyone. Today we have another new episode, and this episode is very important. And we have our very interesting guest and very popular guest, Mark Lee. He's very
How you doing?
popular with all of his show. And we have DC Salmon. She is actually not only popular in Silicon Valley, even country like Bangladesh and Malaysia. She is very well known for everyone. So anyway, now we will discuss about global competitiveness. We have our another friend, Mr. David. So I want to start from DC Simon. How do you want to analyze this point specifically, global competitiveness?
I was looking at the study that had come out in December about global competitiveness, and several things come to mind for me. First of all, I fully agree with the notion and the need for AI and improving our automation. I think it's really important not to use it as a buzzword, but to use it as a real driver of enabling human decisions and better life. I think too often people are looking at automation as a way of replacing talent, and instead, what it really is fortifying the way we do business. Coming from looking at COVID, for example, as a need for automation, it really should not be that each country is on their own trying to figure out what's going on with COVID and how they contain it. Yes, there's a local issue, but there's a global issue as well. We need to get much better at innovation as it relates to the medical field. We also need to get better on innovation as it relates to green business. So it's not enough to just be able to say within my country, I need to improve the way that we do business more effectively. In Saudi Arabia, they are doing things like self-driving campuses where the vehicles are entirely run by electricity, zero emissions busing. They've had to discontinue that for a while with COVID. But what I'm saying is the smart cities of the future are not just a buzzword. It should be serving a purpose like improving our quality of living. As it relates to the human aspects, I think we've got it entirely wrong as it relates to global competitiveness when 50% of the workforce, 49% on a global scale, but 50% of the workforce is women. Mm-hmm. We are underrepresented in the creation of policy, products, and services at the C-level and the government level. In the U.S., 23% of women are represented in government, and at C-level, less than 10. This should not be. So I think global competitiveness involves more than just the human aspect. We need to get better at equity, balancing, and making sure that women are represented at the highest levels to be able to inform policy. So that, because you really don't want a man creating policy for women's issues. It's that simple.
Thank you. Mr. Markley, how do you want to analyze this global competitiveness? Especially, yes.
Well, a couple of things came to my mind as I was listening to our other speaker give their comments and everything. So as I was listening to Dawn, a couple of things definitely came to mind. One of them was I definitely agree with her that we need to be looking at global competitiveness and the global market just in general and everything, because I do feel that that's something that we're seeing more of. More people are looking not just in their local market, but it is very important for us to study our local market, support our local businesses and things of that nature. So I am a big proponent of what used to be called here in the United States buy local, and definitely supporting the local businesses that exist in your local community. But I'm even finding that a lot of the local businesses are reaching out to the global audience. I'll give an example. There's a restaurant here in Durham, North Carolina called Zwelly's, and it's actually a Zimbabwean restaurant. The lady that runs it is from Zimbabwe, and her husband, who is actually from the United States, a rural town here in North Carolina. But when they first came out, and they're one of maybe 3 or 4 African restaurants here in Durham, they found that they had a lot of support. But the support wasn't always from the African American community. It was from other parts of the community, just because it was a novel dish and a lot of other things that were going on. But now they've even done a lot of outreach and have been featured at one of the presidential debates before Biden was elected, and they're going to do some of their work out, taking some of the products to African countries and going around the globe. So I am finding even local people are reaching out into their and brought in their base. So broadening the base because of the internet and because of the way society is, that you can have a local product and sell it to, say, Bangladesh or Malaysia or South
Right.
Africa or a number of other places around the world. So that's one of the positive things that I am seeing. The other thing that I was going to make a comment about to what Dawn said was that she's very right about the ways that corporate America is and everything. I had the pleasure of doing one of my shows yesterday on another network and everything. And while I was doing that show, I was talking to a young lady who is a publicist, and she's from Canada. And she was talking about how Canada has basically created from coast to coast their version of the cannabis industry. And we know that there's talk of that going on in the United States as well.
Right.
But one of the things that she found quite shocking, but not all that shocking, is that where it used to be a more grassroots kind of organization, meaning there were a lot of women, there were a lot of minorities, there were a lot of other people that were involved in it. As soon as it went corporate, guess what? It went 98.5% white male in terms of
Yep.
who was running the boardrooms, because they came from the industries of pharmacy. They came from the industries. There were other industries that were already popular in Canada, but they came into the corporate boardrooms, and now that's who's running the corporate boardrooms in an industry that was not necessarily created out of the white male
Not at all.
infrastructure
Yeah.
and all of that. So definitely that's one of the shames of what sometimes happens within the global community. So that's just some of my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. We have our friend, Mr. David. So how do you want to analyze specifically global competitiveness from your European context?
Yeah, thanks a lot for the invitation again, Sharif. Well, global competitiveness, I suppose competitiveness in general drives firm upwards, makes them more efficient, also brings up new ideas. And as we are a global planet, thanks God, since now 30 years, actually, it's like we have no boundaries that much. Now, not thanks to COVID, we have them again. Lucky us, not for business people still, but it's a breakup. What I see, like I said, it's like it's competitiveness on a global scale is very good for companies. It's very good for the economy. It's driving it upwards, and otherwise, if you have just national laws or national boundaries, your economy is going to be bankrupt. It's like you have no think tank, you have no raising upwards. And this is also the thing is on if you think in terms of a company nowadays, it's very easy to sell your products on a global scale. Yeah, you just set up a website, you push your product further. This is the thing what you think is easy, but then you also have to stick to national laws. Yeah. It's not the thing you create a product, you put it on the website, and then you're allowed to sell it on a global market. Nevertheless, you have platforms or channels like Amazon or Alibaba where it's possible. And Chinese are using this a lot, selling their product also to Europe. I don't know about the States. And also on Amazon is like if you think about toolings, nowadays, most of the toolings are not made. Made okay since a long time ago. Not in Europe anymore, but also not sold by a German or European company, but a Chinese company. And also their thrive is a complete different one, because the Chinese is saying, if I make one RMB on a product and I sell it to 1 billion people, I'm a billionaire.
Yes. Yes, thank you. My next question is that even in the COVID-19 period, what do you think? Like this global competitiveness and other things, it's changed. Like different countries, they now more focus on their national economy, their national growth. And example, country like Malaysia now, once upon a time, I want to say like 1 year, even 2 years before they were more in tourism industry. Now they're thinking how they can grow their national tourism and this kind of strategy. So what do you think? What your advice? Even I know that Madam DC Simon, you have a strong integration with the developing country like Malaysia, Bangladesh, India. So how you see the prospect, what the opportunity we have in the future?
The two areas that I see huge opportunity. The first one is locally, and David was absolutely correct in his statement that people are focusing on their local business. I like what Mark was sharing about the Ethiopian restaurant that is able, or Zimbabwean restaurant that is able to branch out. It's both a cultural education and a culinary experience. We're finishing a web launch for a business in most rural Bangladesh right now. It's a 30-year hardware store, 30-year brand. And we have automated their entire supply chain. And we are getting ready to launch their first e-commerce presence. So they are going to be doing an omni-channel experience in a very rural area of Bangladesh. It is my pleasure to see, with most of Bangladesh now on mobile phones and most purchasing being done by phone, I am so pleased to see Digital Bangladesh has sufficient infrastructure now to support more of that, and now they can actually start to embrace more of that too. That's a good thing. The second thing I think that needs to happen more of in the COVID front, so this takes your business and expands. You need omni-channel. People need to be able to, if they're sick, still need to get supplies, still need to get product. So wherever they are, they need that. The second thing that needs to happen on a global scale is in the healthcare arena. With the increases of things like autism, with things like COVID, with critical health conditions, this is not a local issue. This is a global issue. If we got better at sharing medical records, medical recovery, medical records is entirely it's ineffective where it needs to be effective. And in Europe, they really understand the notion of privacy policy. Well, we need to get privacy policy with recovery sharing at a global scale.
Thank you. You have a very good strategy, and I'm sure that as like the more people, especially developed nations country, they have more business-wise integration with the developing nations. Chances is high, always.
If we collaborate at that level, yes, absolutely.
Yes,
and we should.
Yes, we have our Pacific Rim Business Council Chairman, Mr. Homestoner. So, how are you? How is everything in USA, and especially how do you want to analyze today's discussions, especially global competitiveness?
Okay, I'm coming in halfway down the river here, so I've got to catch up with you guys. By the way, my name is Holmes, and I'm happy to meet you. And I'm here in Los Angeles, where it's another beautiful sunny day here. We are the Pacific Rim Business Council and Chamber of Commerce, as well as the American International Chamber of Commerce. Been around 33 years. We've got 420,000 active small business and micro business members. And our main achievement is to connect these small businesses so that they can connect and grow outside of their own domains. So that's pretty much that in a nutshell. Now, what we're talking about is global competitiveness. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, exactly.
Well, with technology, the way it's growing and growing exponentially, it makes it easier and easier for smaller and smaller businesses to compete. But on the other side of the coin, with the way things have been going for the last 5 or 6 years, is the big boys, the minute that they start seeing that you have some traction, they'll either come in and merge with you or buy you and acquire you. So as fast as these little kernels of popcorn are popping up, the big corporations are eating it. Okay, so The dream of every small business is to see their dream come true. And when a big corporation or a big airline or a big record company or whomever comes in and gobbles you up, well, you just become flotsam. You made a little bit of money, but you never lived your dream. So I think in the global competitive business, we have to look at both sides of the coin. The big multicultural or the big multinational corporations growing exponentially. When you see people like Amazon, just like a mushroom cloud, okay, or where you see Walmart move into a country or a city and just destroy all the small businesses in that city, and create 100 jobs where they put out 1,000 jobs. There's got to be solutions to this, because what Walmart and Amazon are doing are creating a toxic environment for small business. And unless we can come up with a cure for that, it's going to continue, and it's going to continue more dramatically.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Markley, I think Mr. Holmes Sternley come up with a very strong point, especially how the big companies contribute in the local ecosystem. So, so what's your point? How do you want to analyze, and what kind of strategy actually small economy can take? What your observation?
Well, I mean, it's interesting Holmes brought that up, because I remember here in where I'm at in Durham, North Carolina, I remember that when a major institution, this was before COVID, came into town, and that was actually a major theater, and is actually considered one of the top theaters here in the East Coast, named DPAC, the Durham Performing Arts Center. There was a lot of fear that they would pretty much eat up and destroy all of the local theaters and all of that. And to some degree, some of those were not able to survive, but there were quite a few others that used that always popular term of pivoting and found ways to actually maintain a part of their market. So while they definitely were not going to compete and bring in major Broadway shows, when Broadway shows were coming in and DPAC was bringing those acts in, DPAC is about a 2,000 seat theater or something like that. The other theaters that were smaller decided to focus on what they were good at. And by focusing on what they were good at, they were able to still survive, even though the DPAC came in. But I remember when that happened, and that was like maybe some 10 or 15 years ago, there was a lot of concern from our small theater companies that they would pretty much just kind of like destroy that theater ecosystem and all of that. But they found a way to work together. And that's what I think a lot of times we need to do within the global community. One of the things that I've really been proud of and really been glad to be part of is that I've seen a number of even like countries that are got great resources are developing kind of like these conferences and things of that nature that highlight both what they are about, but also let people from around the world bring their goods to them as well. I'm thinking of like Ghana, for example. They do a big time Ghana summit every year, and a lot of times you get to learn about the businesses in Ghana, but there are also American businesses that are showing their story as well and getting to learn about the Ghana market. So that's just one example of kind of these conferences. And I think with COVID, this has actually kind of opened it up, because a lot of folks probably would not have been paying attention to the Ghana summit because they would have been focused on their own environment, their own world and all of that. But with many of us being locked in home during the COVID and everything, as we're trying to deal with the vaccine and see which way that goes and the new variants and all of that, it's now opening us up to researching more and learning about these things, and them opening it up to us as well. So definitely I was glad to go to that conference. I think it was maybe about 2 or 3 months ago, and connected with a lot of great business owners out of that part of Africa.
Thank you, thank you. We have our new guest, Professor Adrian. I think that he is very, very important for our forum. Thank you for joining this World Talent Economy Forum. Even I think that he is also young global leaders of World Economy Forums. So can you please introduce your work? And today we just discuss about global competitiveness. I think you are now you are in Australia, right? Yes, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm in Adelaide, Australia, and nice to meet you all. My background is in electrical engineering, and I'm a professor in the I University, Tokyo, Japan, but I'm in Australia right now because of the coronavirus pandemic. The border is closed in Japan. And I've been doing a lot of work about 20, 25 years in augmented, mixed, and virtual reality.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you, thank you, sir. My major question is that how do you want to analyze this global competitiveness, as you are, I think, has strong engagement in Malaysia, Australia, even Japan's, and how do you want to analyze their competitiveness even in the COVID-19 period?
Hmm. Interesting question. I think the last year, the coronavirus pandemic changed a lot of changed a lot of society, and maybe some of the changes will be permanent. And I think in terms of the competitiveness of the countries, what we're seeing is that there's a lot more appetite now for huge interventions by the government. So I think, if you look at the most successful country even though they had the worst number of cases of the coronavirus pandemic, they had the worst number of cases of coronavirus, but the economy of the United States is going fantastic, and this is largely because of the huge stimulus by the government, not just Biden with a recent 1.9 trillion, but Trump also nearly $2 trillion actually. So I think that what the coronavirus pandemic has shown is that the previous philosophy of free markets and very little government intervention, that's basically gone away now, and now the I think accepted way to make sure economy is going strong is a huge government injection of funds, and this clearly can have big effects on the stock markets, and also in general, we've found the coronavirus pandemic has shown totally new ways to work, and I think in the future that a lot of the changes will remain. I think now everyone will think twice before they jump on a plane, for fly a few hours for some meeting if it's not really important. As we're doing now, we're all connecting by video conference, and I think that's a permanent change that the coronavirus pandemic has brought about. I think people will only travel for very important business meetings now, not just for what we were doing before. And this actually has an effect on the not just effect on the economy, also on the environment, because flying around uses a lot of energy. So we're gonna a lot of major massive changes because of the coronavirus pandemic, and a lot of them will remain permanently, I think.
Thank you, Professor. Mr. David. So, yes, what's your point specifically for developing nations?
For developing nations, first I wanted to say about Corona. I think it leads, as every crisis, first to a complete nationalization. As we see here in Europe, the most important industries are trying to be brought home. So it's like it is used to be that the most medicaments, the most medicine is being produced on a national scale, or not not on a global scale. This has shown Corona very very much, as also most of our medicine is produced in China, and we're actually running out of medicaments during Corona lockdowns. So this is one thing. So bringing back most important industry back home, also when it comes to services, it's like if you have these call centers, most of the time they are being scaled out to India. Nowadays, it's more going back to Eastern Europe, so Romania, Hungary, etc.
Russia.
And it's like we think we are actually a global planet, but also when we start at point A, we will always come back to point A. because it's an oval planet. This is one thing. Has the world become fairer in terms of corona? No. If we see with the vaccination, we have a global pandemic. It's all the same virus. Why hasn't there been an institute set up just making research for vaccination? No, there was every nation running like in the Cold War. Who is the head? Not that we just have a bilateral position, but we have a multilateral position. Who will be the first? Will it be Russia, China, India, or whoever? And this time it was Russia who was the first with the vaccination. Nobody believed it. And then Germany came. And also in terms of bringing vaccination to the globe, money counts. Is America paid more than Europe? Now in Europe we have a problem with getting enough vaccines. Africa hasn't got any vaccines at all. I don't know about Asia, but this is about the fairness. And this is also the thing. What I see is COVID an opportunity. Does it bring us closer together? No. And about your question about developing countries, yeah, it's an opportunity because you're very flexible. You're not so incremented as the Western world countries are, as the developed countries are, because we have set up our fundament. We have been living a high standard, and we are not used to look back again. And this is the thing which will hit us completely. Also, big corporations, small companies, they are flexible. They can adapt very fast. For big corporations, this is a big problem. You have a headcount of, I don't know, 10,000, 100,000 people. Try to rearrange all your boards, etc. It's not possible. And there is a big advantage of small companies, besides being swallowed up. This is, of course, but you can be a pain in the ass for big corporations. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam DC Simon. You have a good interaction with. I said that Bangladesh and the India and other countries. So, but from my point of view, I have a different opinion. Like when we observe, example, mobile phone company, they launch their business in Bangladesh or in India, Pakistan, even in Malaysia, they actually create a very good economical impact. They create different employment opportunities. They make a, I can remember from the grassroots level, many people get their job opportunity with the help of technologies. And yes, on the other hand, yes, there are different opinions. Is like big company go, they can do this thing, that thing. But especially for the developing nation, I saw like Grameen phones, Bikash, they are playing a major roles in the economy. So what are your observations? How do you want to like share your views in terms of big companies' engagement with these developing nations?
I really think I really like, David, what you were sharing about overall with COVID, we have become more national. The global list, the top 20 countries have not changed. Why? Because they're really, really big. It is very short sighted, however, to feel that just because you have the money does not mean by not helping underdeveloped countries, you're contributing to your economy and not to the world. We need to return to the notion of world health. I would have liked to see the World Health Organization, as it relates to COVID, I would like to see the World Health Organization restructured to actually promote and develop programs for true world health. What that means is, if you have vulnerability in Africa, you have vulnerability in this world. This is a global pandemic, and what happens here is going to travel there. We have seen it happen in the US. We've seen it happen in every country where COVID lives. This is why we're seeing second and third strains come in. What's going to solve that? Getting out of nationalism and only protecting your own yard and thinking about how do we attack this world health problem. And by the way, the problem isn't just coronavirus. The problem is coronavirus, economy, management, policy. We need to get better at companies can solve a lot more problems if they think and engage at a global scale. I'm very proud to have a global team. My CTO is from Bangladesh, and he's actually helped to drive policy, the use of technology, to drive the use of technology worldwide. He's created e-commerce solutions in Canada. He's created them in some of the poorer countries. He's worked in China. I think if you look at what happened in China, who's very still strong as a nation, how do the people manage differently to support their greatest resource, which, by the way, is not the product that they sell, but the people that creates, supports, develops their product. A woman, the CEO of Yum, I think it's Yum Foods or something like that in China, when coronavirus hit and food service industries were having to lay people off, she repurposed their business to be able, she felt like if you take care of your people first, the money will come. And she proved that theory happened in this very example. She saved hundreds of, thousands of jobs for her employees by repurposing and saying, we need to feed the essential workers. So instead of being a food distribution service, they became a essential worker food service.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mark. Yes, thank you.
Was actually a couple of things were crossing my mind as Dawn was talking and everything. One was, I think that we're seeing more of the other countries around the world reaching out into the Western nations and trying to find ways to gather some of the resources that exist in the West and everything. I'm thinking about like Ghana and Liberia and the way that they have actually reached out into the African American community to try to get people, one, to either come back to the what would be considered the motherlands and do some business there, either in terms of possibly even relocating, but a lot of folks don't want to necessarily do that, but at least bringing their business into the community as well. So definitely that's some of the things that we're seeing more of that we had not seen before. I mean, Marcus Garvey had talked about that way back in like the 30s or 40s, but in 2020, we're seeing a rebirth of that kind of movement to get more people involved from their different cultures in their homeland with it. And we've even seen that in some of the Latin American countries as well. I'm a big fan, and this is where I'm actually going to toss a question to a new buddy of mine, because I've had the pleasure of seeing him a couple of times in a couple of platforms. But I'm a big fan of Chamber of Commerce's, local Chamber of Commerce's, as well as International Chamber of Commerce's. And I've always been fascinated by the fact that Holmes started an International Chamber of Commerce. So I was wondering if Holmes could share a little bit about that International Chamber of Commerce and why it is important for us to have even an International Chamber of Commerce, because it plays into a lot of what you're talking about, Sharif. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about the need for an International Chamber of Commerce. I know a lot of times when we think of that, we think of the local version. Like I think of the term Chamber of Commerce, of course, there's a Raleigh Chamber of Commerce and a number of other ones, but we don't necessarily think of it on an international plane. So Holmes, I'm tossing it to you.
Yeah, okay.
Well, when you get into the international interconnectivity part, which is my forte, and talking about China, because the two big gorillas in the room are China and the USA, and what goes on between those two big gorillas affects everybody else. So we have to wait until they shake the tree till the fruit hits the ground, okay? Then we go around and gather up what's good, right? So that's a good analogy at this point, because we're all dependent on those two countries. Everybody in the whole world, depending on how those two countries end up on their relationships and how this all ends up. And as this morphs and evolves over and over and over again, the need for an international chamber of commerce, especially for small business, because I don't get myself involved with politics and big business. 70% of the world works at a small business.
Right.
How do we get these people to not only keep their jobs, but to elevate and to elevate their businesses, to have these companies grow? You can't do it without reaching out of your country or your region. And how are you going to do that? There's no mechanism they've been doing it over the last 40 years by going to trade shows and trying to make relationships. But now with the COVID, you can't travel. How can you go to a trade show? Okay. You got to Zoom it. Everybody's Zooming. Okay. And as we get more and more into the Zoom culture, we get further and further away from the handshake culture where true business happens on a handshake. Okay. And we're not doing that. We have become virtual human beings, and the people that with the bakery and the tire repair shop and the gas station down the street and the people that are going to bottle up your drink, they're concerned because they can't expand their business, they can't solidify their business, they have to do something, so they have to reach out, and they have to reach out to Africa, to India, to China, to Indonesia. They don't know the culture. They don't know the protocols of doing business internationally. They don't know the laws. They don't know the human the HR laws. They don't know accounting laws. They don't know legal. They don't know anything. All they know is they have to do it, and they don't know how to do it.
Right.
So that's why I came up with it. It's pretty much the simplicity of it all.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a great idea, and definitely one that is well needed, and I'm glad that you're doing that kind of work. But even if we're thinking about people pivoting, one of the things that I've thought about is I know that I've got friends in the liquor business or the whatever you want to call it, the spirit business and things of that nature. And that's one of the things where we did see kind of a global change going with COVID, because like I said, they couldn't necessarily sell their alcohol or sell whatever there was that they were doing. So I know of at least 2 or 3 companies that they went into the hand sanitizing business, because those same ingredients are also what is needed within the alcohol. So like I said, I know there's definitely one here in the Carolinas, Southern Wicked Lemonade. They have switched pretty much exclusively to being like a hand sanitizing company, and now they're looking at even expanding into other parts of the business and going into some other things as well. So we're seeing how even COVID has created some new business opportunities.
Yes, thank you, Professor Uddin. As you are expert for technology, so and you have a strong background and research in Asia Pacific. So, what will be the future of Asia Pacific with the integration of technology?
Yes, I've spent many years working in Japan, Malaysia, and Singapore. Of course, they are very different countries. Malaysia is still a developing nation, but doing very well to try to become a fully developed nation. I think that in terms of the technology, I think that as I mentioned before, a lot of the things that we saw happen because of the coronavirus pandemic will I think continue in the future. So a lot of the video. I mean, just look at Zoom. Zoom as a stock went up, I think more than 500 or 600% last year. And so it's what was a very minor video calling platform became a multi-billion-dollar business, and a lot of work. Even in the future, I think a lot of work, a lot of business will be done online and at home, and I think only those things which really are essential or really make sense to meet physically will happen, and so businesses have really changed because of I think we went fast forward 30 years in terms of using internet and video for doing work, for doing business, and not just for business meetings. I said before that people will think twice before jumping on a plane, and also businesses will, right? They're going to think, is it worth sending my employee to Tokyo for a business meeting? Is it worth $10,000 or $20,000 cost to my company to do that when they can do the video call and on Zoom? So people will think twice, and it also will have a beneficial environmental factor as well. You know, less people flying is less carbon emissions.
Well, then on the other side of the coin, you one out of every 11 people that works on this planet works in the hospitality industry. You're talking about the takedown of the airlines and the hotel system, and that is not going to set well with a lot of chambers of commerce.
Yeah, I think throughout history we've had a lot of disruption. I mean, we saw disruption in the early 2000s because of the internet. I mean, I think everyone remembers we used to go to bookstores to buy books. I don't think many people go to bookstores to buy books anymore. I mean, except for some, particular, particular reason. But most people will, I mean, that's where Amazon already started. Really, Amazon started by replacing bookstores, and Amazon became one of the biggest companies in the world. So I think we've had disruption throughout history of mankind, and I don't really know much about the airline business, but I read an article yesterday on New York Times, and it really was saying, why are we bailing out the airline industry? Because with the latest stimulus payment by Biden, apparently for every job that was saved by the package, the taxpayers paid about nearly $400,000 US, right? So, why particularly does the government bail out the airline industry? So I think that disruption is a normal normal thing, and that's also part of technological trends. So just like we had in the 2000s, we had very big disruption because of the internet. Amazon is a perfect example. We don't buy books anymore. We don't go to the Blockbuster video store anymore. Everything is done online, and I think this is just a natural progression of the digitization of the economy, and I think it was sped up by the coronavirus pandemic. But I think it would have happened anyway in maybe 10, 20, or 30 years' time. Also when we think about it, a lot of workers, including myself, we used to get up and travel for 1 hour to work, and then actually sit in front of a computer basically, except for maybe a few minutes, and then go home and go home. So you wonder why it kind of doesn't make sense. Why were we wasting energy and time to transport our bodies just to sit in front of a computer when we can do that at home? So I think what's going to happen more and more is that people will just go to work when it requires meeting physically, and even for restaurants. I mean, it's not like the whole history of mankind we had restaurants. It's a relatively modern thing, and maybe it'll be a permanent change that you're seeing massive new companies like DoorDash, which went public a few months ago. Massive company, massive IPO, and so although you might lose restaurants, but you have new companies like DoorDash. This is a little bit like the Amazon of 2000s, and it's just a natural progression of technology. If we do have a lot less restaurants, we might have a lot more big companies like DoorDash and Uber Eats, and you're still going to get people doing jobs, and maybe even better jobs than before.
I guess one of the concerns I've got, and I'm curious to hear what the rest of the panel's got to say, is if we have this kind of movement and everything, is there a possibility that we're going to create a new form of a new colonialism, meaning that you're going to have an even bigger gap between the rich and the poor and things of that nature? Because as you're thinking of that, I'm even thinking of even concerts and things of that nature and sports events, and people are already complaining about the high cost of a ticket to go to a concert or to go to a sports event. But if you've got an even smaller audience now, let's say that you've got a big Coliseum that can only hold 10 to 15,000, and now they can only hold maybe 3,000 or 4,000. Doesn't that double or triple the cost of what's going on? And therefore, those costs are going to go even more exponentially higher. So like, let's say a ticket for a basketball game, and I don't even know what they cost these days, but let's say that it was $400 or $500, and correct me if I'm wrong, Holmes, because you're actually in a city where those big sports are going on and everything, but now it's going to be like $1,000 or $1,500,
Well,
$2,000.
there have been some recent developments, once again, talking about technology, where they have taken crypto, what do you call it,
Currency.
blockchain technology, and they have taken crypto technology, bundled it up, and put it into the ticketing part of events like concerts and musicals and concerts and things like that, where when you the reason that it's so expensive to buy those tickets is because people buy them in big blocks and resell them, scalp the tickets. So if you want a decent seat, it's going to cost you $500, $1,000. That's because of the block buyers. When you put in this crypto into the program that's processing the payment, you can only buy one ticket at a time. So this is the technology that's happening as we speak. This is popped up this week, as a matter of fact. So as these technologies become more and more refined, product-wise, specifically focusing in on these kinds of issues, and make it very difficult for people to buy things that normally used to be readily available, because other people will buy them, hoard them, and then raise the prices on them. Those days are gone. Okay, within the next couple of months, they'll all be out of business, because now this new technology is going to phase them out. And that's the world that we're living in. We're living in a world where on a daily basis, these little entrepreneurs that I represent come up with these technologies, whether you're in a village in Bangladesh or a big city outside of Tokyo. They're constantly developing, thinking, studying, educating, learning technologies, developing technologies, integrating technologies, and making a difference in the world that we live in. So we need to 100% keep encouraging and developing our small business infrastructures around the world, so that we can continually sustain ourselves as we move along here, because that's the lifeblood of our civilized society. Not Walmart, not Amazon, or any of these big behemoth corporations. That makes things cheaper and easier, but it certainly doesn't encourage innovation.
No.
And I'm sorry, but I've got a TV award ceremony that I got to be at in about 5 minutes. So I have to.
Okay. Thank you for joining today's sessions. So we will discuss with our other panelists. Mr. David, yes.
Yes, I will also make my last statements, as I actually already overdue my 30 minutes I wanted to spend here. Nevertheless, well, Adrian, yes, restaurants are very new, but it's not about eating outside. It's about a social event. It's about getting together with people, meeting people, and we are there. We are how to say, we need physical objects. Yeah, we need 3D objects. We are not made to look at a mirror. It's for us, it's on a psychological perspective brain confusing. And that's why I also liked, Mark, what you said, handshaking. That's where the business is being done. And this is also the case if you look at the Arab culture. They are making most of their contracts by a handshake and not with a signature. And that's why I'm also optimistic that it's not going to change with COVID. I really hope so, because we need the face-to-face contact and not face-to-face via a laptop, but face-to-face really in front of each other. Because there's also so much biological things going out. We are spreading a lot of different substances, which this is very, very important for our development as a human being. And I really hope it's not going to change, and also not that that COVID is accelerating this process. Of course, there was always disruption, as we can see, is like 100 years ago, or 150 years ago. There was no car, or really few cars. Everybody was riding with a horse or had a horse. We measured here in Vienna, if everybody would now have a horse, it's like Vienna has nearly 4 million people. The streets would be flooded with horse shit. Yeah, this also has changed rapidly. Horses have been replaced by cars very rapidly.
Right.
But this was, I say, a process which brought us a lot of benefits. Mobilization brought us closer, brought a lot of globalization. But digitalization now brings us far, far away, because we are not leaving the home anymore. We are not seeing other people anymore.
Right.
And this is really killing us on the psychological side and not making us happy now. And also I see from competitiveness, it's killing competitiveness completely. If we stay at home, if we are not sharing ideas, if we are not talking with each other, it's like now we have this wonderful forum, Sharif. Thanks a lot for this.
Thank you.
But this is only on a small scale. We are now discussing, or you are discussing with different people. But at every conference afterwards, you have these break-up sessions, you have these open sessions, you have these breaks where you discuss and meet with people, where you share ideas, etc. And this is what we need. And one last thing, the two gorillas are not America and China. Please don't forget Europe. Europe is really a strong gorilla as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yes, this is Simon. Yes.
I really like the discussion today. This has been a great session. I view things a little differently because of my experience. I liked when you were talking about the transition from 2000 to present. Right after September 11th, my company, Sun Microsystems, we were a global company, and we did business globally when nobody else was doing it. There's people I have worked with for 15 years. I have never met them, but I'm as close to them as this. And the reason is we learned how to connect and get things done and bring our best selves to the table and innovate. Sun was at the time one of the most innovative, and it's bringing today, we're seeing some of the benefits of COVID. There are benefits, and believe me, as a COVID survivor, I dig deep for this stuff. But one of the benefits that we saw at Sun, 33% of our workforce right after September 11th began to work from home. Many of us gave up our offices completely. Now imagine 133,000 person company, 32% of them stopped going to an office building. How much can you save in California real estate alone? That's a lot. That's a lot of energy, a lot of driving on the roads that you're not doing. The economy, the ecology, and the life balance was all better as a result of being able to control our work environment. That said, the human connection is something we still need to do. We need to be able to see each other eye to eye. And that is somewhat missing today with everybody forced to do it. I think at Sun, we could choose to go in the office, but we realized we could be just as effective from home. We don't have a choice now. We have to do this, which makes it more limiting, I think. But it's also better for roads, transportation, economy, ecology. The air is cleaner, even in highly populated areas. If everybody is staying home and not on the roads as much, the environment gets cleaner as well. So we need to work on connecting. Best practices is the best way to do that. Sharif, you've created a wonderful forum. I do the same on LinkedIn communities. We're able to connect people I have a 65,000 member recruiting community that's dealing with how do we handle COVID now, COVID level, post-COVID recruiting. I have a jobs forum that helps people around the world, doesn't matter where they're from. You've got a job, you can hire somebody, come here, hire our people and put them to work. There's more we can do by just learning to connect and care about one another. You are my brother, even if you're across a few ponds. We need to connect at that level again, as if you are my neighbor right across the street that's looking to me eye to eye.
Thank you.
If I can add to that just really quickly, and I've got to bounce as well, as I told Sharif,
yes.
I've got a board meeting to go to with the Carolina Theater very shortly and everything. But one of the things that I've been glad to see is, one, Don, I agree with you that we're definitely seeing great connections using some great platforms. I know my friend Brian Shulman, who's considered a LinkedIn influencer, he oftentimes uses LinkedIn in order to connect people from around the globe, not just in California where he's based at and everything. And I'm here in North Carolina, but we oftentimes talk on a regular basis and all of that. And along those same lines, yes, we do need those social environments and everything. But as we're in the middle of the pandemic and everything, I am finding a lot of people that are doing innovative ways to even maintain the social thing and everything. I'm actually a part of a group called Daybreakers, which is actually a dance group, and they're an international dance group, started with those international day dance parties, but they have regular events. As a matter of fact, I think they have one this weekend. So these are people that are doing literally global dancing on a regular basis and doing it in order to maintain that community. So they're also doing meditation and wellness and a number of other things, so that we do have that balance of not just the work life, because definitely we become attached to these lovely things called computers. Like I said earlier, while even on this call, I was doing a little bit of other related work as well. So definitely we are using the computer, but we're also finding ways to use it even to communicate with family members and to do things that are part of our regular regimen, whether that's exercise, you might be doing meditation, dance, or some of the wellness things as well. So we're finding ways to use even this tool in order to have those things go on and all. And I do think, kind of to Adrian's point, that we are heading into more of a hybrid world and everything. So I'm not going to be surprised where we don't see a concert where literally half of the audience, or I would even say more than half of the audience, probably only maybe 10% of the audience is actually there in the physical location. The other 90% will be watching it on whatever the platform is, whether it's Zoom or whether it's a number of other platforms that exist. And then I'm going to leave, as a couple of other folks did, with a slight joke and everything, but Dawn will get it and everything. But who would have thought, for those of us that are in that age range of like around the 50s, 40s, and 60s, that a very popular TV show would have become a very popular tool that is being used on a regular basis. Because anybody that's over the age of 50 remembers a show called Zoom, and we definitely were not thinking about this when that show was on the air. We were thinking about the children's TV show.
I see Mark. I see Adrian.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Professor Adrian. So, yes, Professor Adrian. Yeah.
Oh, you want me to say something? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think that I totally agree. You know, one thing that Dawn mentioned was about the energy, and you know, if you just calculate, I mean, I don't think anyone's actually calculated it, but if we calculate how much energy is used, you know, let's just say in America, how much energy was used for people to drive to and from work, and you know, that must be a massive amount of gasoline used every day. And so just from an energy point of view, it totally makes sense to work from home. I mean, of course, you know, go to the office or go to meetings when it makes sense and to physically be there. But you know, just to sit in front of your computer at your office doesn't really make sense. You can do that at home. So I guess some at MIT or Harvard has already calculated that, but it must be a massive amount of energy that people saved during the last year, and I think this will continue. You know, so I think from the environmental point of view, you know, we've probably managed to do during the you know, 2020 pandemic year more than all of the green political parties could have ever achieved in probably 20 years. So I think there was also a famous picture in the New York Times last year showing New Delhi, and it had clear skies, and for the first time in years, and it was quite incredible. They had a before and after snapshot of New Delhi, and it just showed the difference. The air was clean, because of everyone was staying home because of the pandemic.
Thank you, Professor. We directly want to go for the concluding remarks for today. We have our two guests right now, Madam D.C. Salmon and Professor Adrian. Hopefully, like from your concluding remarks, our youth communities, our policymakers, our corporations, those who engage with World Talent Economy Forum, they will learn and they will get something from today's sessions. Madam D.C. Salmon.
Well, I really am happy to see youth communities. I'm happy to see innovators really still try to connect to solve the big problems, because we do have we have an abundance of problems that we can be solving while coronavirus is present, and not just healthcare. Yes, the way that we do business has changed, and I really do believe it's changed for forever, just like Adrian has said. I want to see, and I want to encourage everyone to understand how they can contribute to communities of best practice thinking like this, where we come together and we break down the walls of traditional limitation and instead embrace innovation and solutions. I am astounded at the solutions it was one 17-year-old girl, Malala, who brought women's education and equity education for young women to the world. There's a 17-year-old boy in Bangladesh who heard about the suicide of a 15-year-old girl who was cyberbullied, and he came up with a software that did what the local governments failed to do, and that is accountable action, easy mobile access, education, and development. So what do we see? We see the use of human talent. We see human education. We see the use of technology. We embrace mobile. The youth of today are the key to tomorrow. The way that we connect is the key to today's challenges. I encourage people to understand and become the best ambassadors for what they do. Through social media, right after September 11th, which for me was the first global paradigm that changed our world. My company, Sun Microsystems, this company I worked for, had a building in World Trade Center 2. After that building was bombed, the building crumbled. We had to rebuild, and we were forever changed by that experience. But the network that I created for jobs and for recruiters to come together and say, wow, that was really rough. What can we do to make it better? Those are still in place today. And what started in September 11th, 2001, grew from, really, it was 5 recruiters and myself working to try to find jobs for people around the world when they were laid off after September 11th, is now a 65,000 member global network of recruiters around the world. Same thing for the jobs community. We helped tens of thousands of people, one person at a time, find jobs right after September 11th until today. That network's still in place, and it just comes to do what you do best, help another, and be a student and teacher of what you do. That's what I would like to suggest we all do to help to recover. Bring your best self to the game and realize that we are better together than we are alone.
Thank you. Professor Adrian.
Well, I think for the young people, there's every time of disruption is also a massive opportunity, so just look at, as I mentioned before, a company like DoorDash. basically very simple idea: deliver food, and you can write it on an envelope in a few words, right? But it's now a billions of dollar business, and this just shows that the young people can grab the opportunities of this disruption. And I think we're seeing the rapid, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we've seen a rapid acceleration going forward, maybe 10, 20, 30 years in terms of digitization. So there is just a massive opportunity for young people to make disruptive businesses. And I stayed in Malaysia for a while, so I know, for example, Grab, a company called Grab, is also delivering food, and they're just like a multi-million-dollar business now. So there's, that's just one example that the young people have a look what's being disrupted now by the rapid digitization, which is, accelerated greatly by the coronavirus pandemic, and grab this opportunity, because I think these disruption times only happen maybe once every 20, 30 years in if you look at every century, and now is a time of disruption. Young people can grab this opportunity and can make massive businesses from it.
Thank you. World Talent Economy Forum, we have believe in our youth community. Even in Asia Pacific, more than 50% people actually youth. And we believe that if we can give them proper knowledge, proper skills, they will change the futures. So talent is everywhere. Talent is in USA, talent is in Japan, even talent is in India, talent is in the remote area in Malaysia. So we believe that if we can connecting all of the dots, we can solve many problems. And from the COVID, we can learn the young people can change many things. And with the help of youth community, we can change this world. And definitely technology is very, very important. We need to know how to use this technology. So thank you, professors, for joining today's forums. We have a lot of summit, conference. We are developing academy. So your contribution will be very important for us. And this is Simon, how you contributing with your job and recruitment. Definitely we have many youth. Hopefully with the collaborations of World Talent Economy Forums, we can solve many young people's problem as well. Yes. So thank you for joining today's session. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.